So young adult, you took that. Is there a reason you went young adult as opposed to just kind of like general fiction?
Um, so maybe it's just like me being young in spirit. I really like the young adult like genre. I think it's really fun to write in just because like young adults it can be a little bit ridiculous, but like I think that it's funny. Like 'cause it can be pretty dramatic, and then I think it's cute to like when they write like when teenagers have like their first love, like there's something innocent and like cute about it. And yeah, I like writing in like that world.
I'm thinking back to like when I was reading Fear Street novels, which I got into way after Stephen King, just for the record. Eventually read through all the Stephen King, and then you got to go back to the young adult horror. And there was definitely something like I went through them when I was more of a teenager and had kind of a there was certainly something to like the relationship element of it that is different in other types. Like if you read like Tolkien, it's almost not there in like the way that is there. Like you have like weird ethereal relationships between Strider and whatnot. Or you get into more adult relationships and stuff. But there's like an innocence to the relationship, so they do have like where the people are learning how to do relationships.
Yeah, and it's like an innocence in it, and then that I like writing, and then in my book, partially it's young adult because main character is a teenager, but I also enjoyed writing for her is so she's like teenage girl. Teenage girls can be pretty dramatic. And then I liked writing the family dynamic because to her, sometimes it seems like her parents seem pretty like not reasonable when like writing it as an adult, you can also see it from her perspective because she's the protagonist and from her point of view.
This is how I would say this if you were my daughter, but I get where you're coming from.
Yeah. And then, but like writing it also as an adult, like, and then and I hope that it comes across in the reading that like, that the parents literally are doing the best that they can under these set of unique circumstances.
Was it cathartic at all when you're writing these kind of conversations, like just walking yourself through every conversation you've ever had with your mom and dad? If I had superpowers, it would have amped this up, but
well, a little bit because I think part of like growing up is realizing that your parents are human and like maybe sometimes they made mistakes because they are human and they're not perfect, but they literally, most of them literally are trying. They're doing the best that they can under whatever circumstances.
There's always that joke about you're an adult when you realize how little you knew. Like you realize your parents knew nothing. Like they're just as clueless. Like if any kid knew what their parents don't know, this whole thing would just be completely out of control.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so it was kind of like having that family dynamic in the story and stuff like that too. I like doing that from like a young adult perspective and like just so you get her perspective, but then like reading it, like there are clues to be like, hey, like they are trying. These are unique, dangerous circumstances, and kid, you are not making this easy.
Let's just say we add puberty to anything complicated isn't going to make it harder. So tell us a little bit about the setting in the world for your book.
Okay, so it's set in like it's not on Earth. It's like its own thing, but modeled after Earth, and it's set essentially in two countries. So, the main character, her name is Alexandria Stecklar, but Alex for short. She's 15, and she has telekinetic powers, and she lives underground, like physically underground, with her family, and they have other psychic powers too. Like, so her mom is also telekinetic and her dad's telepathic, and she has an older sister by a year who's also telepathic. So they live in their own thing underground on the border of their country, Clavania, in I can't say words. Anyway, they live underground where their country in the neighboring country, Parancia. And Parancia is where like magic folk are, so like magical sorcerers. And the two countries are basically an on again, off again war conflict, and her family lives underground because they're trying to be like, we're not involved. We have two kids. We're trying to like protect them. We're not we're not in this. And then, so that's basically like the setting, and like the psychics live more like how we live, with like, technology and stuff. And then the other concurrency of the sorcerers. So magic is kind of like their technology. So I wouldn't say anyone is like technology lacking. It's just different. So instead of like,
What do you call technology?
I guess like magic, but with computers. I don't know.
Well, no, that's why a joke. It's like, so you went and you did the age old trope. You put science versus magic, huh? You've seen that one before. And the reason it works, we do it, is because it works so well.
Yeah, and it's fun to do.
I'm reminded of that Phineas and Ferb episode where you've got them at the con, and half the guys are on the sci-fi convention and half of them are on the, the Tolkien convention, the fantasy, and they're doing their battle, and it's all fun. I'm curious if there's like a religious component that comes in at all, like with the magic versus the science side of it, or if there's if you have a different way of kind of explaining that. How does magic work in this world? Is it just kind of like a thing, or is it related to some type of societal structure? How do you explain, like, if you have a technological side and a non-technological side? How does, say, like to me, if you're a telekinetic or whatnot, you would seem magical in a technological world. Is that part of it? Part of the narrative? Like, I'm curious because it's just an interesting way to do that.
So how I structured it is like that it's all genetic, right? So it's like these different powers that were like passed down, like just genetically, and then I also like framed it as like being able to like bend certain type of like energy and just having different abilities to do that. So the magic is just like the type of energy and genetic flow that the sorcerers have. And then like the psychics, that's just, I guess, what they genetically are evolved into having, was like that type of ability.
Are they, as you say, they're kind of like the same thing but explained differently on either side of the line? Is that kind of the idea, or are they actually different things?
They have their similarities, but they're different because they can do different things from each other.
Well, no, that's interesting, because it's a way to go. Because you'd think in a world where people see one type of magic versus what seems to be the same thing, because that's always the magic versus science debate, is all on how you describe what's going on and how you justify it. Did he move it with his mind? Well, no, but there's these things in the air that his mind just happens to be able to, there could be the scientific explanation or the magical explanation for it. So that's always, it's like I say, it's a dichotomy that we all understand innately. And I think this, in a young adult novel, it's got to be extra poignant, because part of growing up is realizing the difference between magical thought and the reality behind what magic is, I guess. So